Have you ever found yourself just staring down a really complex decision, where the path forward feels, well, anything but clear? Maybe it's a big strategic move for your business or even a significant personal choice, and you're just grappling with all these possibilities, uncertain outcomes, high stakes. It can feel a bit like being lost in a fog, right? No compass.
Absolutely. Overwhelming.
Well, today's deep dive is all about finding that compass. We're talking about a really powerful tool, decision trees. We're going to explore how these intuitive diagrams can actually shine a light on even the most tangled problems, helping you map out choices and, anticipate what might happen.
That's a great way to bring structure.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We'll unpack what decision trees actually are, how you build them, how you evaluate them. Then we'll walk through a practical example to really see it in action. And for that kind of ultimate strategic edge, we'll even get into how you can put a financial value on getting hold of crucial information when things are uncertain. And this whole deep dive, it's custom tailored right from the source material you gave us. So it's really a direct shortcut to understanding this whole valuable concept.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. When you're facing one of those multi-layered decisions, just visualizing all the possibilities can be the first big hurdle. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's where decision trees really shine.
What's really insightful about them isn't just, that they're a diagram. It's that they force you to systematically confront the problem. They're just invaluable when you're looking at a whole sequence of choices. Or maybe when there are multiple uncertain outcomes popping up at different stages. Think about situations where, say, future sales figures or project costs are kind of tangled up and unpredictable. A decision tree gives you that clarity, that much-needed structure, just by laying it all out visually.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by how they take something that feels so abstract and, make it concrete, visual. What are the key bits, the core components? I understand they use some common shorthand, right?
So, exactly. You'll mainly see two symbols. There's a square, and that represents a decision point.
Okay.
That's where you make a choice. It's a course of action within your control.
Right. A choice I make.
Precisely. And then there's a circle, which stands for an outcome point. These are the moments where the future is uncertain. The result depends on things outside your control. Market conditions, customer behavior, stuff like that. Yeah. Not your direct choice.
Okay. So squares are us, circles are the world, kind of.
That's a good way to think about it. And both types of points, squares and circles, they're always followed by branches, showing the different paths that flow from them. And crucially, every single decision tree has to start with a square, because the whole process kicks off with a choice you need to make.
Okay, got it. Starts with a choice. So once we've sort of mapped out our options and the uncertainties, how do we actually use this thing? How does it guide the decision? Our source mentioned 2 clear stages.
Exactly, 2 stages. The first one is the construction stage.
Right. Building it.
Yeah, you literally draw the tree. You start from the left side of the page and work your way across to the right. So if a decision point has, say, 2 possible courses of action, you draw 2 branches coming out of that square. Simple as that. And similarly, if an outcome point has 2 possible results, 2 branches come out of that circle.
Okay, makes sense. Draw the paths.
Then, once you've got that basic skeleton, that structure, you add the numbers, the data. So you write the probabilities for each outcome on the relevant branches and also the cash inflows or outflows associated with each path.
The money involved.
Right. And here's a key rule. The probability shown on branches coming off any single outcome point, any circle, they must always add up to 100%.
Okay. Like all possibilities have to be covered.
Exactly. If they don't add up to 100%, you've either missed a possible outcome or you've made a mistake somewhere in your numbers. And just a quick note.
Right.
Remember, we only include relevant costs and revenues here. Standard relevant costing principles apply.
Okay. Relevant costs. Got it. So we've drawn our map. We've put in all the potential scenarios, the probabilities, the money. Now what? How do we actually read this map to find the best route? This feels like the real aha moment.
It is. That's the second stage,
the
evaluation and recommendation stage. And the key thing here is you work backward.
Backward, so right to left.
Exactly. You start from the far right-hand side of the tree and move across to the left, the opposite way you drew it.
Interesting. Okay.
And you systematically calculate something called the expected value, or EV, at each outcome point, each circle.
Expected value. How does that work?
It's essentially a weighted average. You take each possible cash flow that could happen from that point, multiply it by its probability, and then you sum up those results. You can jot these EVs down right on your tree next to the circles. Just make sure you show your workings clearly.
Okay, so calculate the average outcome for each uncertainty point.
Precisely. Then, when you work your way left and hit a decision point, a square, you compare the expected values of the different branches leading out from it. You simply look at the calculated EVs of the options available at that square, and you choose the path, the course of action, that gives the highest expected value.
Okay. So at the choice points, you just pick the branch with the best average payoff.
That's the logic. And finally, based on working all the way back to the very first decision square on the left, you can confidently recommend a course of action to management, backed up by the highest overall expected value. And visually, it's pretty common practice to actually cross off the branch or branches after a decision point that represent the alternative you didn't choose. Shows the rejected path.
Right, makes the chosen path clearer.
Exactly. But remember, you never cross off branches coming out of outcome points, the circles.
Why not?
Because those outcomes aren't your choice. They represent possibilities governed by chance or external factors, so you can't just eliminate them from the picture.
Good point. You can't just decide the market will be good. Okay. Let's try and bring this to life. A real-world scenario might help. Our source material had a good one, I think. Something about a company deciding whether to develop and launch a new product.
Yes, that's a perfect example. A classic use case for decision trees. So, the initial decision point D at the far left, is simple. Develop a new product or don't develop. That's the square we start with.
Develop or not develop.
If they choose develop, there's an immediate cost. Let's say the research and development will cost $400,000. That's a definite outflow right at the start of that branch.
Right, $400 K investment.
After that investment, we immediately hit our first outcome point. Let's call it Circle C, uncertainty. Will the launch work? The estimates are there's a 70% chance the product launch will be successful and therefore a 30% chance it will fail.
Okay, 70% success, 30% failure.
Now let's follow that 70% success branch first. If the launch is successful, we hit another outcome point. Let's call it Circle A, more uncertainty. Because even a successful launch can have different levels of profit. The estimates here are, say, over the product life, maybe 2 years. There's a 0.2 probability of a 20% chance of high profits, maybe $1 million total. There's a 0.5 probability, 50% chance of medium profits, say $800,000 total. And a 0.3 probability, 30% chance of low profits, let's say $600,000 total. And notice 0.2 plus 0.5 plus 0.3 adds up to 1.0 or 100%.
Right, covering all the success scenarios. High, medium, low profits. Okay.
Now, let's go back to that first outcome point, Circle C. What if the launch fails? That was the 30% probability branch. If it fails, we hit another outcome point, Circle B. Even in failure, there are possibilities. Maybe there's a 0.6 probability, 60% chance the R&D work, even though the product failed, can be salvaged and sold off for, say, $50,000.
Okay, some recovery value.
But there's also a 0.4 probability, 40% chance that the R&D work will be completely worthless. Yield $0. Again, 0.6 plus 0.4 equals 1.0.
Right, so failure means either a small recovery or nothing.
Exactly. So that's the whole tree drawn out with costs, probabilities, and potential payoffs.
Okay, map complete. Now for the evaluation. Working backwards, right to left.
Correct. So we start at the furthest right points. Let's look at Circle A, the outcome if the launch is successful. We calculate its expected value, 0.2 probability, $1,000 profit, plus 0.5, $800,000, plus 0.3, $600,000. If you crunch those numbers, that comes out to $780,000. That's the expected value if the launch is successful. We write that $780K next to Circle A.
Okay, $780,000 for the success path outcome.
Now, let's look at Circle B, the outcome if the launch fails. The EV there is 0.6 probability, $50,000 recovered, plus 0.4 super dollars. That calculation is simple, $30,000. So the expected value if the launch fails is $30K. We write that next to Circle B.
Right, $30K for the failure path outcome.
Okay, now we move one step left to Circle C. This was the outcome point immediately after the initial R&D investment. It branches into success, Circle A, or failure, Circle B. So the EV at Circle C is calculated using the EVs we just found for A and B, weighted by the probabilities of success or failure. It's 0.7 probability of success, $780,000 EV of success, plus 0.3 probability of failure, $30,000 EV of failure.
Right, weighting the two possible results.
Yeah, and that calculation gives us $546,000 plus $9,000, which equals $555,000. This is the overall expected value after the initial investment, considering both success and failure possibilities.
$555,000, got it. So that's the value at C.
Now we take the final step left, back to our original decision point D, the square where it all started.
Develop or not develop?
Exactly. The not developed branch is easy. Expected value is $0, no costs, no profits.
Simple enough.
For the developed branch, we take the expected value we just calculated at Circle C, which was $555,000. But we have to remember to subtract that initial R&D cost of $400,000.
Ah, right. Can't forget the upfront cost.
Never. So the net expected value of the develop option is $555,000 minus $400,000, which equals $155,000.
$155,000 profit on average.
That's the expected profit value. So now at decision point D, we compare. Option 1, not develop, has an EV of $0. Option 2, develop, has an EV of $155,000.
Well, $155,000 is definitely better than $0.
Clearly. So based on these calculations, the recommendation to management is straightforward. Develop the product, its expected profit value is positive, and it outperforms the alternative of doing nothing. We then visually cross off the not developed branch on our diagram.
That really walks it through clearly from chaos to a number.
It does bring clarity. And it's just worth mentioning quickly. Sometimes you might see these trees drawn slightly differently, particularly with these nested outcomes. Some people use what are called joint probabilities. So instead of branching success then profit level, they might calculate success and high profit as one branch. 0.7 by 0.2 equals a 0.14 probability.
Ah, like multiplying probabilities along the path.
Exactly. The tree looks a bit different, maybe more branches further out. But crucially, both methods will always give you the exact same final result, the same optimal decision.
Okay.
The step-by-step method we just used, though, is often found to be a bit more intuitive to follow, especially when you're starting out.
Good to know there's flexibility, but the core logic holds. Okay, that example really makes the process concrete. But, no tool's perfect, right? Are there limitations? Any hidden pitfalls we should be aware of when we're relying on these expected values?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point. While decision trees and EVs are powerful, relying solely on them does come with caveats. Firstly, remember that expected value is a long-run average. It tells you what outcome you'd expect if you could repeat this exact decision under the exact same conditions many, many times over.
Right, like flipping a coin many times averages out heads and tails.
Precisely. But for a one-off, unique decision, which many strategic decisions are, the actual outcome you experience might be quite different from that calculated average EV. You might get the high profit scenario or the low one, not the average.
So it doesn't guarantee that specific outcome for a single event.
Not at all. Secondly, the whole analysis hinges on the accuracy of your probability estimates. And let's be honest, estimating probabilities accurately, especially for situations you haven't faced before, can be really difficult. It's often more art than science. Garbage in, garbage out, potentially.
That predicting the future is hard.
It is. And thirdly, the expected value criterion implicitly assumes the decision maker is risk neutral.
Risk neutral, meaning?
Meaning they are indifferent between a certain outcome and an uncertain outcome with the same expected value. They don't particularly seek out risk, nor do they particularly avoid it. They just follow the highest EV.
But people aren't always like that, are they? Some love risk, some hate it.
Exactly. If your decision maker is strongly risk-averse, they prioritize avoiding losses or risk-seeking, they're attracted by the chance of a big payoff, even if the EV is lower, then just looking at the EV might not be enough. In those cases, it's often helpful to also present the best case scenario and the worst case scenario alongside the EV to give them a fuller picture that considers their attitude towards risk.
Right. Provides more context than just the average. That's a critical point. And it raises another interesting question. What if we could reduce some of that uncertainty? What if we could get more information before making the decision? Is there a way to figure out how much that extra knowledge, that edge, is actually worth, especially when the stakes are high?
Yes, there is. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept, the value of information. Specifically, we could think about the value of perfect information and imperfect information.
Perfect and imperfect. Okay, what's the difference?
Perfect information is just what it sounds like. Imagine you had a crystal ball that gave you a 100% accurate prediction of the future outcome. You'd know for certain whether the product launch would succeed or fail before you even spent the R&D money.
Wow, okay. That would be nice.
Wouldn't it? Imperfect information, on the other hand, isn't 100% accurate, but it still reduces your uncertainty. It gives you better insights than having no information at all. Maybe like getting market research results that are usually reliable, but not always spot on.
Okay, so better than nothing, but not guaranteed.
Exactly. Calculating the value of imperfect information is often more complex, and its value will always be less than or equal to the value of perfect information. often much less. That'd only be equal if the information, perfect or imperfect, wouldn't actually change the decision you'd make anyway, in which case both values are zero.
Right. If the info doesn't change your mind, it wasn't worth paying for.
Precisely. Now, calculating the value of perfect information is more straightforward. Its value is simply the difference between the expected value of your profit with that perfect information and the expected value of your profit without it, which we already calculated.
Okay, EV with perfect info minus EV without it. Let's revisit our product example. How would that work?
Okay, so remember, our EV without perfect information, the decision we made based on our initial tree was $155,000, the expected profit from developing the product.
Right, $155K.
Now, let's imagine we have perfect information about the launch outcome before we decide whether to invest the $400K in R&D. There's a 70% chance, the original probability, that the perfect information tells us the launch will be successful. If we know this for certain, would we develop the product?
Yes, definitely. We knew the expected profit from success was high.
Exactly. The expected value if successful was $780,000. Knowing success is certain, we'd invest the $400K R&D. So our net profit in this scenario would be $780,000, $400,000, $380,000.
Okay, $380 profit if we know success is coming.
Now, there's a 30% chance the perfect information tells us the launch will fail. If we know that for certain beforehand, would we still invest $400K in R&D?
No way. We calculated the EV if it failed was only $30, and that's before the $400K cost. We'd make a huge loss. So we wouldn't develop.
Correct. We'd intelligently choose not to proceed with development. So in this failure scenario, knowing it in advance, our profit would be $0 because we don't invest.
Right. Avoid the loss. Profit is $0.
So now we can calculate the overall expected value with perfect information. We weight the optimal profit in each scenario by its original probability. 0.7 probability of being told success, $380,000 profit, plus 0.3 probability of being told failure, $0 profit.
Okay, weighting the best outcome under each piece of certain news.
Yep, that comes out to 0.7, $380,000 plus 0.30, $266,000. So $266,000 is the expected value if we had access to perfect information before making the initial decision.
$266,000, which is higher than the $155,000 we expected without the info.
Exactly. And the difference between those two numbers is the value of perfect information. So value of perfect information, $266,000 EV with perfect info. $155,000 EV without perfect info, $111,000.
$111,000. So what does that number actually mean?
It means that $111,000 is the absolute maximum amount this company should theoretically be willing to pay to obtain that perfect crystal ball prediction about the product launch success.
Ah, I see. It quantifies the worth of certainty in this specific decision. Anything more than $111K for that info, and you're overpaying based on expected value.
Precisely. It puts a ceiling on what you'd pay for market research or forecasting that claims to give you that perfect foresight.
Whoa, that's actually incredibly useful for evaluating things like consultancy reports or market studies.
It really is.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive then, it's pretty clear how decision trees offer this, well, structured, really systematic way to tackle these incredibly complex problems, even when there's a lot of uncertainty hanging around. They're not just about, crunching numbers, are they? They seem to be more about making genuinely informed strategic choices.
I think what's really compelling here, is how this framework forces you to explicitly lay out all your assumptions, to really understand the potential pathways, and critically, to connect the dots between the choices you make right now and the potential outcomes down the road. It encourages some real deep critical thinking about risk, about reward, and just about the whole nature of making decisions under uncertainty.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's the process as much as the result. It makes you think next time you, the listener, are faced with one of those really big decisions, maybe it's business, maybe it's personal, ask yourself, could I actually map this out? Could I draw the choices, the outcomes, think about the probabilities, even roughly? And maybe even more importantly, how much would it actually be worth to you to know what's coming next? What would that perfect or even just better, imperfect piece of information reveal for your specific challenge? And how might knowing that actually change the path you take?